Hi guys, it's Melissa Keenan here, CEO and owner at Coaching with Melissa Keenan. I'm also a USA Today best-selling author and keynote speaker. And I'm here today to talk to you about experiencing pleasure without limits. I had this huge aha around this recently, which is so fun in this line of work, that it never ends. Like the depth and the growth with intimacy never ends. And that's so fascinating to me. I see everything through the lens of intimacy, and so I'm super excited to share with you. I'd love to hear as you pop in here, or even as you're watching replay, say hello. Let us know where you're watching from. And then I'd love to hear what comes up for you when you hear the phrase pleasure without limits. Does it sound wonderful? Does it sound uncomfortable? Does it trigger some concerns? Pleasure without limits. I'm a firm believer that in the truth of our radiance, the truth of our core as women, that we are meant to experience pleasure without limits. And there will come a day when that will be our reality. And so the kind of question that I'm asking myself, and I have to give credit to my money coach right now, who helps me really see and feel this question. But I feel like this is a question that's being asked of all of us from the universe. How much pleasure can you possibly stand? What do you think about that? Isn't that a fascinating question? How much pleasure can you possibly stand? So in your business, as you're calling in, next levels with income, with impact, with how you're, affecting your clients. And then as you think about your relationships and how you're calling in deeper connection, whatever, maybe think of in terms of like emotional connection and the pleasure that can be had there. And then we take this to another level, which is physical intimacy and the pleasure that can be had there. That's where my mind goes immediately. When I think about pleasure without limits, let me just get really real here. It makes me think of those times, and I wonder if you've had these times where you're in physical intimacy, and you get to this point that you have to like tap out, like it's too much, I can't take anymore. And I think, oh my gosh, so there is like a cap for us that we can experience of pleasure. And yay, hi Bree, so glad you're here. Hello, hi Jessica, thanks for sharing. So again, oh yeah, girl. So again, I want to hear what comes up for you when you think about the possibility of pleasure without limits for you. That's your birthright. I always say, never take anything that I say as gospel. Don't take my word for it. Just take it, plant it deep inside, plant it, let it resonate, let it ruminate, and then see if it feels like it's right for you. See if it feels expansive. If having this belief or adopting this belief leads you to greater levels of expansion in your life, lead you deeper into the truth of who you really are. Okay, pleasure without limits, I believe, is the truth of who we really are. And I can get real woo-woo about this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to save that for my personal clients who really, really get me and get this work. But I actually really, really believe it's the essence of who we really are. I've shared this in this space before, but let me make one point to that. Have you ever thought about this? A woman is the only mammal in all of creation that has a pleasure organ. So funny. I share this with people and people go, no, wait, what? But really think about it. There is no other mammal on the planet that has a pleasure organ. Even men, they don't have an organ that is simply designed to create pleasure. They don't. Only us. The only thing that comes like in a second close is that a cat purrs. Like, why do they have the purr feature? The purr feature, like they're a robot. But really, right, it's so that they can express that they're experiencing pleasure. But that's not the thing that's giving them pleasure. Women have a pleasure organ. So why on earth, if there's a God in heaven and he made you and you're his child, why? Why? If there's a miraculous universe that made you as a woman, why do you have a pleasure organ? Just something to think about there. Isn't that great? Yeah. Hi, Lindsay. Thanks for hopping in here. So good. So what then prevents us from experiencing this? And why are more people not talking about this? It's interesting because the word pleasure itself comes with a lot of maybe connotations or attachments, like culturally in society. We automatically start to think like, she's talking about sex, and then boom, whatever you feel about sex, it's like all of a sudden that's up in your face, right? When you think about pleasure. I think like one aspect of pleasure could be like unlimited joy. That's another way to think about it. So, and I'm gonna break down pleasure even more as we go throughout this training. But what are some of the other things that block us from experiencing unlimited pleasure? Well, if you look back just a few generations for women, the rules were stay quiet, stay small, don't be too big, don't be too expressive, like stay in your place. And this is in our DNA. And not only is it in our DNA, but Brene Brown, any Brene Brown fans out there, type in the comments. She's my girl. I love her. Would be such a, like, some people dream about being interviewed with Oprah. I'm like, yeah, that would be cool. But Brene Brown, if you know Brene Brown, give me some hookups because I'm putting it out in the universe. She did extensive research and she actually did find some interesting things about men and women and how we experience shame differently, and how women specifically have messages, and this is happening today, not our ancestors, this is today. Women still believe that we need to stay small and meek and quiet, which is fascinating, right? Like with all the advancements that women have been able to make, that this is still, like, we still have shame. Think about it. When was the last time you felt guilty for talking too much? When was the last time somebody told you were loud and you immediately shut down in shame? I mean, you know, when was the last time you laughed so much? I just talking to a girlfriend earlier today and she's like, oh my gosh, I went on this girls trip and it was the best. I feel so bad. I think I talked too much. There were 7 of us and I shouldn't have talked so much. And right, it's just in our conditioning. These are the kinds of things that then shut us down to pleasure. Because it's like, I can't show that I like really enjoy something. Another example, and see if you relate with this. Very early on, I want to say my husband and I were still dating, maybe just newly married, something like that. Probably still dating with the level of my reaction, but we bought a mango. We dated in college. Like, we got married and dated. We were very, very young. We bought a mango. I hadn't had a mango in like years because I was probably eating like ramen and stuff. I don't know. And I got this mango and it reminded me of my sweet aunt. She used to buy me mangoes when I was a kid. And I just like got into this mango and I was like making noises and I didn't even realize it. I was just eating the mango and like so present with the mango. And all of a sudden my husband goes, and, you know, I think we were dating at the time, goes, wow, you really like that mango, don't you? And it was like, oh my gosh, like a flood of like this heat that like, you know, raised, it was shame. Like immediately, like I was like, so humiliated, so embarrassed to be in enjoyment of something. Okay. So So now knowing that about me, does it also make sense that then I would struggle with fully receiving orgasms through many, many of those initial years of my marriage? Many, many, many. I had to really work through this. This is why I do what I do as an intimacy coach. I get it. I get these things that show up for us. I mean, doesn't that correlate? It's like, oh, wait, I didn't believe I deserved pleasure then. I definitely didn't want to be overly expressive about it or something, right? Then, of course, I'm going to respond that way when it comes to sex. Like, oh, my orgasm is taking too long. It's like proving to be too difficult for him. And like, oh, I probably know exactly what I need, but like, I don't want him to feel disempowered. Like maybe, he's not actually the one that's satisfying me. So I'm not going to involve myself, even though I probably could get this over with in 5 seconds. And now we're going to take 45 minutes or more, right? We do all of these things. Okay. Is anybody's face red as you're listening? We do all these things and it blocks us to pleasure. And so why am I here talking about this in our business group, where we're here, women helping women in a business space? It's because, of course, that blocks our radiance, our magnetism, our impact, our ability to be present, our ability to be in our power in our businesses, especially for service-based women. Maybe this isn't the case if you're out selling vacuums or something. I don't know. But I think it does. I think it really affects us. It's like we try to show up, we try to put on our A game and put our best foot forward, but our best foot is guarded up by all these shields and things saying like, don't be too big, you're bad if you experience too much pleasure. Like, isn't that fascinating? And then who relates here with mango is your favorite fruit, a goddess fruit. I love it. Honey is a divine nectar. My name's Melissa. Melissa means honeybee. So I'm like right with you, Lindsay. Actually, okay. So where I want to go with this now is to really see that this does impact things. So we now know it impacts our ability to be in full expression, right? It obviously is hindering our happiness. It's potentially hindering how we show up in our business. And I mean big ways. The clients I work with are always so excited and shocked at the different ways that doing this inner work then shows up in manifestations in the tangible world in their business. But then we go the next layer. Is this actually affecting your romantic relationships? And I can promise you it is. It is. Even if he happens to be the one that's most critical of you being really expressive in your pleasure. Because that can be the case, right? He was raised breathing the same air. Like, oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. My husband used to be like that with me. Now he embarrasses me. but it does affect our intimate relationships. Because the pinnacle, you guys, is two individuals, sovereign whole beings who come together in a relationship, who co-create together, who are like, seeking their next levels of progress and also pleasure, right? Like, why are we trying to progress if it's not going to be enjoyable? Like, really, so many of us feel like the point of this life is to suffer on some unconscious level. And it just doesn't have to be so. It doesn't have to be so. Somebody here needs to hear that. So we're with our partner, we're co-creating together, and we're accessing next levels of pleasure. And then we're able to go out and empower the world around us, impact the world around us. I operate from the principle that what is best for my highest and greatest good will be best for everyone in my sphere's highest and greatest good. Doesn't that make sense? So the beautiful thing and what I love to see is a woman who is liberated in true pleasure. She actually liberates those around her. Have you ever had a friend come to you and say, "Oh my gosh, I just had a $60,000 day," and it unlocks something inside of you. You're so like happy for her. She's your friend. You're so excited. You're excited together. And all of a sudden you're going, oh, like that's possible for me. If that's possible for you, that's possible for me. And then you feel this expansion. So liberated women liberate women, right? Do we all know that? I love that phrase. Same goes for pleasure. We are not, glutton for punishment. We are not sent here to just suffer through life. So I want to give you one last little journey here to help you understand and hopefully help you I want you to walk away from this video feeling like, yeah, you know what? She just gave me massive permission to experience more pleasure in my life. I'm taking that seriously. I'm going to take that in. Here's kind of how I see this journey going. We start out, we're young, and we can't help but being a victim to our circumstances. Whatever happens to us when we're a child, we have no ability to look at things any differently, right, than a victim. We didn't have choices. That choices were taken from us, in some cases very severely, right? And then we go throughout our life, and at some stage, and this happens at a different age for everyone, typically business people have to like get on our game with the personal development stuff, right? Because otherwise it's like, I'm drowning. I can't show up for my business because I've got too much stuff to process. So we start down the personal development journey at some stage in life. And from there, we're looking at things like, okay, actually, I'm not going to be a victim anymore. I'm going to take this and I'm going to learn from the suffering that I went through. I'm going to learn from that suffering. And then I see some people just stay there for the rest of their life. I'm learning from my suffering. So then suffering just continues to perpetuate. So it's like, it's great. It's a super crucial next step if you haven't gotten to that point where you can look back at the painful things in your life and feel a gratitude even, feel a healing, feel a forgiveness, feel a sense of, I now see why and I'm better for this thing that happened in my life. And if you feel like maybe I'm, pushing some buttons here, I'll put my story in the comments on my website at melissakeenan.com. Like, I'm not just blowing out of thin air. I have experienced tons of trauma. So please know, like, I'm sharing heart to heart with you here. So first level is we're just a victim. That's it. Second level is I learn from my suffering. At some point, there's another stage. Some people never access this next stage. And it's the aha or realization that we do not have to suffer to progress. We do not have to experience trauma in order to progress. In fact, progression can feel like pleasure. I mean, I look at God. If my goal is to become as God is, which I believe that very, very deeply. That's kind of, I guess, maybe what you would say the point of all my personal development and progress journey is to become as God is. If I think about God, any context of God, whether it's from any religious background, I'm like, I don't imagine someone who's just up there suffering. Like, somehow they're able to access immense joy, pleasure, radiance, love, forgiveness, grace, all of these things, right? We know that gratitude and love are the highest vibrations. I'm like, that's a description of pleasure to me. So at some point, we get to unlock this door. And if this is speaking to your spirit, then I invite you to say all the way from now on, like, I used to learn from suffering, but I don't need suffering anymore. I used to only need suffering to progress until now. Oh, there's that suffering again. That's something I used to do. Suffer to learn, suffer to progress, but not anymore. Do you guys hear what I'm doing? These affirmations that you can just drop in for yourself. I'm giving you full permission to unlock this key for yourself and say, wow, from now on, my progression is going to come through pleasure. And what's my next level of pleasure? And my next level of pleasure. And my next level of pleasure. You guys. Yes. Jessica, thank you for all your comments in here. I haven't been able to read them all, but I promise you I'll go back and read them all. Yes, Lindsay, let's make new choices. It's hard. Starting is so important. It's so true. It's so true. So that's the progression. That's what's available to us. And I want to drop in one last truth bomb here for you about pleasure. There's something really beautiful about pleasure, and why I'm attaching to the word pleasure and the concept of pleasure, even more than joy, even more than love or gratitude, because pleasure can only be experienced by including our bodies. Am I right? Think about pleasure in your life. Think about, okay, when can I identify pleasure in my life? It's like, oh, it was like, on the beach with the breeze hitting my face. It was in those really sacred, intimate moments. Gosh, it was in the birth of my children. There was like pain there, but man, there was pleasure. It's in sensation. It's embodied. It's fully embodied. It's like we get to say to all of our trauma and past stories, like, no, I'm grateful for this body and she's along for the ride. Isn't that beautiful? Because our divine really is in our human. Like, we can't experience these next levels of pleasure without bringing our body along for the ride. So if any of this has resonated with you, my friends, I'm so glad you were here. So glad that you were able to get something out of this. I'd love to hear if you want to DM me and share more about what you got out of this today and maybe how you're going to implement it in your life. Absolutely love to hear from you. But we all know in our journey of progression, if we really want to anchor into something, we need to invest in it. We need to invest with all of our resources, our time, our mind, our emotions, our spirit, our money. We need to invest. And that's what's going to create massive change and create it quickly. And so if this resonates with you, this is what I do. I am the owner and head intimacy coach in my company, and we guide high-level business women through the 3 pillars of intimacy, which is true intimacy, reclaiming sensuality, and your divine feminine embodiment, so that you can access your next level and your next level and your next level of unlimited pleasure in every aspect of your life, in your business, in your relationships, so you can heal up those things that have held on to you, those old stories, those old patterns of suffering our way through life, feeling like we have to have everything hard in order to grow. We don't have to. And it feels so good to say this all out loud, because that has been my story. Like I said, I speak only from experience. And I am so grateful for the life experiences that I've had. And if there's more trials, for me in my life, then, thank you. I welcome you. I will bless those and I'll make the most of those. But I don't have to make my own trials. I don't have to make, scaling my business like I'm unsafe, like I can't breathe because it's not safe. Every step is scary. I don't have to do that stuff. I don't have to make it harder for myself in order to grow and progress. Neither do you. Thanks, guys, for watching. And if this does resonate with you, DM me and let's set up a call. If we haven't had a call together, I'd love to hold a 15-minute call with you so I can listen to you, listen to what your story, your experience is with pleasure, with intimacy, with your relationships, with your business. I'd love to hold that space for you and see what your next steps are. Just go ahead and DM me. Thanks, guys. Bye.